What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back to talk about the Detroit Lions draft. And I guess today it's sort of a draft rumors video, but not really, because we got to hear from the man, Dan Campbell himself. He recently did an interview with beat reporters, and he had a lot of interesting information that he gave out. Plus, this has kind of went mainstream. You're seeing it all over the place. People are talking about kind of one quote that Dan Campbell had, even though they're kind of taking it out of context with what they're saying. So we're going to dive into that as well. I'm actually going to react to a video in this video. We haven't done that in a while, but man, it kind of got under my skin. So you know what? That's our guy. We will be reacting to a video once we get further into this one. But aside from that, Dan Campbell did talk about the Detroit Lions upcoming draft, and he gave us a little bit of insight on what the Lions may be looking to do, but of course, he didn't give it away. So let's get it started.
The city's been down, and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. Back once again for another draft video. Getting to hear from Dan Campbell before the draft process. I don't think there's an actual video on this. It sounds like he was unable to make a meeting because he was dealing with an illness, up answering questions from beat reporters. So we have some interesting quotes out there. I've looked around at different sources and they all pretty much match up. So it's like, okay, I see what he's saying here. He talked about, of course, Kayvon Thibodeaux potentially at the number 2 pick. He talked about the potential of drafting a quarterback at the 2 pick. He talked a little bit about Jared Goff, and that's where the out of context quote has kind of been taken, and all of a sudden a lot of these, mainstream media is kind of running with it. Now, shout out to the media that's been pointing out that, hey, this is a little bit out of context what people are saying. But either way, we're going to react to that in today's video. Just listen to what Dan Campbell said, see what maybe we could take away from it. We know at this point there's going to be a lot of smoke screens out there, but at the same time, some things that these guys have been saying are sort of lining up, and I think there's some little maybe nuggets within what he said that maybe we could take away and have a better feel on maybe where the Lions will go in this year's draft. First player that we have some quotes on from Dan Campbell is, of course, the pass rusher out of Oregon. That's Kayvon Thibodeaux. And I feel like, his name's been in the media a ton recently. We've talked about him over here multiple times, and he's probably going to continue to be that way up until the draft. I think it started back, when we go to the combine, and obviously the decision, not to do workouts at the combine was very questionable. Then there were also already some questions coming into that in terms of effort issues. I think it's just that he runs a little hot and cold in some games. I think that's where that stems from. But then you have the combine. Then you have some of the quotes that he's put out there. And this is really just continuing to balloon up until the draft. Now, that's the outside narrative. We don't know what the inside narrative is. Right now, it's not like there's off the field, issues with Kayvon Thibodeaux. There's nothing that we know of, well, he did this wrong off the field. But as Dan Campbell says, you do have to know the background of the player. You have to understand the mindset. And Dan Campbell puts it simply, does he love football? And that's, the money question. And while he was talking about Kayvon here, he was also kind of talking about every draft pick just in general. Any player that you bring in general. Now, specifically talking about Kayvon, he says Kayvon, he's explosive. He has a great first step. He said he's pretty special on tape. He's something else. And I do agree with him there. I mean, obviously, the first step is something that we have noted before. If you watch this film, it's something that's very evident, very early when you watch him. He's a pretty darn explosive athlete. You can definitely see that. I love him playing on the weak side of the defense line, the ability to run down plays. I definitely think that he needs some really good coaching from a defensive line coach. And, that is one of those questions, is okay taking the coaching, improving off of that. And those are the money questions that you have to figure out. But I think it really does boil back down to how much do you love the game? How much time are you going to be willing to put into it once you get that paycheck? Because, this is a lot of money. So once you get paid that kind of money, once that team invests in you at that point, what is your drive? Is it more drive now? Is it less? Are you taking a step back because you're like, well, I got paid, I got paid. Or is it, hey, I got paid, now I want to do this. Now, I did like Kayvon's quote. He said what he wanted to do in the NFL was he wanted to win a Super Bowl, he wanted to get a gold jacket, he wanted to be defensive rookie of the year. Those are the list of goals that he has. And I love that quote because I look for those quotes that are beyond, just getting drafted. Hey, I want to be the first pick. Okay, that's great. You want to be the first pick. Awesome. But I'm not drafting you to be the first pick. I'm drafting to be a great player for us for years to come, be very productive. Talking to the people that like him, talking to people that don't like him, talking, to the people that worked around him, not necessarily with him, but worked around him, going back to Oregon, going back to, where he's from. All of those kind of things, I think, all go into this. And, that's the job of the scouts and everything to find out the background on these players. Lions have had a lot of visits however, with Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, Dan Campbell has not personally, I've read, been to any pro days, so that is something to note. But you know, you're always sending guys to pro days. Now, Lions did send a lot of people to Kayvon Thibodeau's pro day. I think a big reason for that was the fact that he didn't do workouts at the combine, so that's a very big part of that. But the Lions have seen him many times, including Brad Holmes, you know, of course, at the pro day, as we mentioned. Holmes has also seen him live at an Oregon game. Now, scouts, they're doing that all the time. You know, they're always seeing these players live. They want to see them in action. They're seeing the practice. They're seeing that kind of stuff. GM, a little bit different, you know, because they're not out there doing that, right? They're general managers. They're the top of everything. They're not out there the guys that are going and, you know, scouting these players, going to their school, things like that. Reportedly, also, Brad Holmes was also at a Georgia game, so you obviously think of Trayvon Walker there. I think it's more than just looking at those two guys. I mean, you think of those two, but when you think about Georgia, there are so many players you could be going there to watch, even offensively, but mainly defensively. And you look at a team like Oregon, I even think of the safety. I'm still not sleeping on Verone McKinley potentially being a draft pick for the Lions. Lions have a scheduled top 30 visit with him, which we talked about yesterday. Go check out that video if you have not. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have spent time with him back at the combine. They spent some time with him there. So even though he didn't necessarily do his drills there, apparently they still did spend some time with him at the combine. This is what Dan Campbell said. And again, I feel like this answers to every draft pick. Don't make this just Kayvon Thibodeau, but it's a lot of the outside question with Kayvon, so it does fit it. But he says this. He said, I want to make sure any question you have, any question you get answered, not just the athletic ability, it's the other things. It could be mental. We went into a pretty interesting story here of his time with Miami, but he said this first. He said, I don't care about the off the field. He says, does he love football? That's all I care about. As long as the guy loves the game, you know, as long as he loves football. And I think when you say loves football, it doesn't mean like, oh, I enjoy watching football, but it's you love it to the point where you're getting up early, you're putting in work on your own time. It's just that passion, it's that love for the game that really, I think, grows once you get drafted. It's beyond just being drafted. It's the love of the game by itself to be great at it. You know, I think that's what he's really saying when he says, does he love football? And then Dan Campbell went on to say this about his time back in Miami. This is interesting. Now that this has been put out there, some people are saying, well, this is a problem too. The point is, Dan Campbell went into this story back when he was with Miami, and he said this player is still playing in the NFL, but he didn't specify who that was. He was a dynamic football player, but he came in every day just reeking of alcohol. He was probably on a bender for who knows how long, but God, he loved football. He showed up. He didn't have any MAs, missed assignments. He hustled nonstop. And it's like, you know what? You'll find a way to make that guy work. You know, now that's one of those things like Dan Campbell says off the field. You know, hey, he's drinking off the field. That's one of those things that, you know, he's probably a young player when he came in just based on the way that Dan Campbell is saying this. Something that as a person you want to grow and you got to stop doing that, you know, just for your health alone and take care of yourself. You know, that is an issue. But at the same time, he loves the game. And it's not a question of, well, he's not going to put in work. You know, he's not going to do this and that. Yeah, he may have this off the field issue, but it's something that can be fixed. It's not like you can give a player, you know, that drive to be great, to put in the work. You can't give a player that, but you can improve some of the off the field things to make sure that you take care of yourself and that you have a long-term career. And if you really love the game of football and if you really love what you're doing, you'll make sure that those off the field things don't come in the way of what you love doing. He's going to give us 100%. You know, it's not going to be a question of effort with him. It's not going to be a question of he didn't work to get better in the offseason. He loved the game of football. So it's an interesting little story that Dan Campbell kind of put out there, but I think it kind of gives you an insight on what Dan Campbell is saying. Everybody has bad habits, and we can handle some of those, but the biggest thing is, does the guy love football? Because if he's just there to get a paycheck, if he's just there to be a top pick, and at this point he's just kind of, you know, he's just mailing it in every week, that's a problem. We can't have that. We need a guy that loves the game, and, you know, we can handle some of the off the field stuff. Really haven't heard anything like that about Kayvon, like, oh, he was coming into games like this and that. But again, that's something that the scouts will have to figure out. They'll have to dig into the background, and I'm sure the scouts for the Lions have dug into the background of that, and now the Lions are, you know, like Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, who aren't going, you know, probably to these places to see him very often. They want to talk to him. Just like Campbell said, yeah, I mean, he's a very good athlete. He's explosive. He's got a great first step, you know, but it's not about the ability. It's more about the mental side. I mean, it could be about the mental side, and I think that's what he's talking about here. Do you just have that love for the game to get better and really want to become great? I think he gave a very interesting quote that kind of gave you a little insight on what the Lions may be looking for. Now, he definitely left the door open. We know these could all be smoke screens. He definitely continued to leave the door open on who the Lions would pick or what position they're looking for at number 2. But he did say this: at the time you get the first game, he can come in and he can produce. He said he can grow each year. He can grow a little each year. That's what he said that the Lions are looking for with the 2 pick. Now, the biggest thing you take away from that immediately is day 1 starter. He's saying that he wants a guy to come in and be productive for us year 1. Now, obviously, when you think of positions like quarterback, and you're thinking, okay, well, if you draft a quarterback too, that guy's very likely not starting. So maybe that's taking quarterback off the list. While I believe the Lions aren't going to be drafting a quarterback at the 2 spot, could they do it at some point? Yes, they could. But I definitely don't think they're going to do it at the 2 spot. He didn't close the door on that potentially happening. Dan Campbell went on to say, all that matters is, do we believe we have a guy that can come in and help us right now? Not in a year from now, can he help us right now? So it really makes it interesting when you think about like the quarterback position. You're like, okay, well, that guy's likely going to be coming and be a backup if he is drafted at 2 right away. I mean, I guess he could come in and start. You could do that. You would just have Goff's contract there. It'd be a very weird situation. But I guess he technically could do it. But someone that can come in and help us right now. He feels a need that can help us play. Campbell said he had conversations with Brad about a couple receivers yesterday. He's also said that he's had, conversations with Brad about the quarterback position. So he's still continuing to leave the door open to really anything, safety, receiver, quarterback, edge rusher. He's like, yeah, we've probably talked about those guys that everybody's having conversations about, the Kayvons, the Hutchinsons, the Trayvon Walkers. I mean, everybody that's brought up, Kyle Hamiltons, those guys that a lot of people are talking about. But he said we've also, we went through receivers, we went through quarterbacks. Neither of those spots I think the Lions will draft. Definitely don't think they're taking a receiver at 2. I think that'd be crazy. But yeah, I definitely believe they talked about receivers. And like he said, once we get through all these player meetings, which is really the last step right now, we'll come back and we'll decide what we're going to target within this draft. But like he said inside the den, we want to get players that we freaking love. We want to fill the board with guys that we love. That way, no matter who name that is, no matter what position that is, we just love the guy. I mean, that's the kind of players that we're going to draft. They talked about it last year. We're just getting guys that we love. Specifically speaking of Malik Willis and Sam Howell, because the Lions coached both those players at the Senior Bowl. They also coached Bailey Zappi, but I didn't see his name pop up here. He's expected to go a little bit later. Hey, Bailey Zappi did really well in that offense, okay? He took that offense that he's been running for a while and then to Western Kentucky, and he took it to another level. We saw the statistics that he put up last season, but this is what he said. He said, I feel like we got a pretty good handle on both of them. I like both of them. Speaking of Sam Howell and Malik Willis, I like both of them. Look, Malik, he's explosive now. This guy's an explosive athlete, and he'll learn to play the quarterback position. But he's explosive. Okay, I think Dan Campbell's favorite word is explosive. And I like the word too, but he uses it a lot for a lot of different things. Malik Willis is explosive. He's got a big arm, that's for sure, so I guess I can see where he's going with that. Explosive in terms of the guy can run. He's dangerous with the ball in his hands. He's probably the most dangerous player, I think, with the ball in his hands as a quarterback in this year's draft. So I get the word. The term makes sense. It fits him. He says he's an explosive athlete that will learn to play the quarterback position. So he's clearly acknowledging the fact that, yeah, Malik Willis is extremely raw in terms of reading defense, what he's asked to do offensively. It's going to be a very big transition for him at the next level. He's made that clear by saying that he'll learn to play the quarterback position, as if the guy hasn't played quarterback before, right? He's going to learn to do it because he's very raw. Coming from Auburn, a transfer, played at Liberty for a couple seasons, and he's just a very raw quarterback that's an explosive athlete. I think Dan Campbell nailed it right on the head. Now, that kind of counteracts with him saying, well, we want a guy that's day 1 impact. If you're saying he's going to learn to be a quarterback, clearly those two things don't line up there at all. He didn't really say anything, I guess, about Sam Howell, because I didn't find any quotes about that, and I don't think the Lions would take Sam Howell at 2. I did have him high at one point, but he's kind of starting to work his way down my big board for the quarterback position. Campbell went on to talk about Jared Goff. Now, we've heard Rod Wood talk about Goff, saying that we have a quarterback. We've heard Brad Holmes talk about Jared Goff. Actually, one of the quotes, he said, Jared played good for us late last year, so we have a lot of optimism in him going forward. And then we have a quote from Dan Campbell speaking on Jared Goff. He said, I'm glad we got him this year. It's what's best for us right now. Notice how he keeps saying right now, helping us this year. What's best for us right now, he said, Jared Goff is basically what he's saying. I think that's what I take from that. He's saying Jared Goff is right now. But he didn't close the door on obviously potentially drafting a quarterback at some point. Continuing to talk about the quarterback position, Dan Campbell kind of stood on something that we've heard him say in the past. He does like having some mobility within his quarterback, but he also has told us in the past that it is all about up here. It's all about up here. And even when he was talking about the mobility in a quarterback, when you listen to what he was saying, he was really focused on keeping his eyes downfield, knowing the reads. I mean, it's all those things. Yeah, you can get an athlete, but you have to know the other things outside of that, right? There's a lot of great athletes that can't play the quarterback position. He said this when he was asked if they needed a star quarterback, particularly a mobile one, to win consistently. Now, this is kind of what's been taken out of context, where people are just saying Dan Campbell says you don't need an elite quarterback to have sustained success in the NFL. We're going to get into this, but here was this quote. No, I don't think you need that. I think, boy, you'd love to have that type of player because they can improvise. There's things that they can do, and they can improvise with their eyes downfield so they can run your offense. They are going to do what they need to do. They understand it well. They know their reads. If something kind of isn't right, they've got pocket mobility, and then they can break it. But their eyes are always downfield. Quarterback that knows the reads, understands the offense, keeps his eyes downfield, and also has that mobility. And that's like he says when he says, well, obviously those guys are special. A big thing that I take out of that is when he says pocket mobility and then they can break it. Pocket mobility, pocket athleticism to me is way different than running outside the pocket. Pocket mobility, you don't have to be a great athlete. I mean, I think when you think about athletes, about a guy who runs a super great 40 and things like that, pocket mobility, being able to move the pocket while keeping your eyes downfield, for a lot of quarterbacks, that's what it's all about. Being able to sense the pressure, move the pocket, avoid the sack, move your body, reset, still deliver with a good base, and deliver a good accurate pass. That is what I think he's saying when he's saying pocket mobility. And then he says they can break it. That's a different situation. Once they're outside the pocket, things are different. Whether that's a rollout, whether that's just scramble mode, whatever that may be, two different things there. Now in that case, you want to have more of an athlete. You get Jared Goff breaking out, you're probably not having a ton of success. You had a couple first down runs, but it's not very often that happens. Does not mean the best athletes. It means the guys that move the pocket the best. It sense it post snap. They don't have to put their eyes down. Like Dan Campbell stressed, keeps their eyes up, which means that you have a really good feel of what's going on around you. Because when quarterbacks put their eyes down, when they put their head down to try to find the pressure, means they have no feel of what's actually going on in terms of where the pressure is really even coming from. And that is where you miss targets. That's where you don't avoid the sacks. That's where it turns into scramble drill, and that's where you have problems offensively. He continues with this. Those are the guys that hurt you. Not just the pure runners, as we kind of just said. It's the ones that can always just kind of keep looking for the next play while I'm moving away from you. They can certainly give you a better chance, but no, I don't believe you have to have one of those guys to have sustained success. And I completely agree with that. Now, it depends on exactly what he's talking about. Do I believe you need a guy that can, move the pocket well? Yeah, I think you got to have that. Do I believe that you need a guy that can get out of the pocket and run? No, I don't think you have to have that. Now, there's different types of athletes, but if a guy can really feel what's happening, and when he decides to take off, he can still pick up yards without being the best athlete because he knows, hey, it's man coverage, the middle of the field's open, I'm going to take off. I can look this off, and then I can go and take off. All of a sudden, the middle of the field's open. Even if I'm not a great athlete, I'm good enough to get 7-8 yards. So to me, you need that. You don't necessarily need the outstanding athlete that runs a 4.6. This is where things get interesting when he says this. What is best for us right now? Okay, now, hey, if you want to know where the Lions might be going, just think about this. Brad's got to look at it a little farther off than I am. Meaning Brad's got to look a little bit more into the future than I do because, my job is to go win football games with whatever team is being put out there. But right now, what gives us the best chance? And man, let's build the roster. Right there is where I circle it. I'm like, yes, Dan, let's build this freaking roster, please. Let's build this roster in general. Now, if the right guy is sitting there, well, I guess if was added. Now, if the right guy is sitting there at the right pick, at that position, then let's do it. But we like Goff, and I like where he's at. He finished strong. Keep adding pieces, and then, man, whenever that is it next year? Is it this year? Is it 2 years from now? And the right guy sitting there, then you figure out a way to go get that guy. Away from that is the Detroit Lions are looking to build right now. We don't know what's true or not. Obviously, you try to leave everything out there from what he said, but it's just taking all the right nows and production this season. To me, it's really feels like, okay, if there's that guy that we love, you have to take him no matter what. And if the Lions love a guy at 2, if it is a quarterback, you take the guy if you love him. I don't have that guy at 2. Maybe the Lions do. I don't think that they do. It's the part where I circle because that's what the Lions did. They got to do. Build a roster, build the team, and then he's saying, hey, obviously depending on how Goff plays, because like you said, we like Goff, like Brad Holmes said, we like the progression. I mean, everybody's kind of coming together on this where it's like, hey, we like Goff. And we put some pieces around that. We see where it's at. And then, to me, it's, okay, depending on where we're at with that, then we make that decision. For a year later, we come out this year, we build around Goff, and all of a sudden we're winning games. You make a decision. You say, okay, where are we at with Goff? How many games do we win? Did we reach, what we were trying to reach? How well did Goff play with this help? We saw a small sample size last season, but what do we see through a full season? And then you make a decision, okay, do we go get a quarterback? And like he says, you go get that guy. You find a way to go get him. And I mean, that's just how it works, right? You find a way to go get him. You give up 4 first-round picks if you got to go get that guy. But just taking a quarterback because you're sitting in what people would call a premium spot to take a quarterback this year is not how I would ever address it. Just because I'm sitting at 2 doesn't mean my pick's going to be a quarterback. Because like, well, I might not get to 2 again. That's a good thing. I should not be at 2 again. Being at 2 is not good. It's not where you want to be. right? But, okay, yeah, Lions win 6 games. Then what? Well, now they're sitting at what, pick 8? You find a way to go get that guy. And if that guy's going to go before 8, you find a way to go get that guy. But if you win games, great. You didn't have to draft a quarterback. You build around the quarterback. Now, all of a sudden, you can have that option where you roll forward with Jared Goff. And that would be the ideal situation for the Lions. I'm sure that's what they would prefer, is to have it work out that way where it's like, hey, we won with Goff. We don't have to go on this chase for a quarterback. We don't have to use either of these 2 first-round picks on a quarterback. And if it worked out that way, where your 2 first-round picks basically that you got from LA for trading away your starting quarterback, and you didn't have to use a quarterback, and you didn't have to use one of those picks or picks to get a quarterback through the draft, you really finessed that deal. Ultimately, you did a fantastic job. But that, time will tell. Time will tell with Jared Goff on that side of things. But I'm completely with that, and I don't care. Like, hey, if I'm sitting at 17, I'll find a way to go do it. Teams that need a quarterback, find a way. If we have to dig into the future picks, if it's that guy, because everybody knows quarterback's most important position, we'll go get that guy. We'll find a way. But just because I'm sitting at 2 doesn't mean, well, I'm taking a quarterback this year. It means we shouldn't be sitting at 2 again. This is a problem, we're sitting at 2. But it doesn't necessarily mean, well, I'm taking a quarterback because I'm sitting at 2. Nah, because if you don't love that guy, you just wasted the pick completely. No matter the position, I'm taking the guy that I love with this 2 pick in the draft. So that's just kind of my takeaway from it. Is it possible the Lions get a quarterback future? Absolutely. Is it possible they draft one this year? I think so. I think it's possible. It definitely feels more likely if the Lions are going to do it, it's going to be higher in the draft. If not, they probably won't. But I still think it's possible, depending on how the board falls, because there's guys that I'd be cool with scooping up later, but the Lions may not even do that. They may just be like, hey, we're not even going to get a quarterback in general. We got Boyle back. We got Bilal back. There's a reason we got those 2 guys back, and if you saw the inside the den, they were clearly happy. It didn't almost feel like placeholders. We'll see if that turns out the way with David Blau. But you got those 2 guys back. I don't think they're taking one at the top, so they may not draft one at all. Maybe they pick up a UDFA for competition, and then it's like, hey, we'll build this roster in general, defense, run game, weapons, and then we'll see what happens. We'll make our decisions from there, and once that guy is there that we love and we feel like if we need to go get one, we'll go get a guy. But I think that's the right way to approach this. Don't just force the pick because it's like, oh, hey, we're at 2. We might not get this pick again. Talk about the Kayvon thing, and they're trying to go from their experiences, and of course that's what the scouts. What have the scouts gathered? What does Todd Walsh feel about the player? Those kind of things when it comes to making that decision. But this headline has really been kind of just thrown out there, the elite quarterback, because that was, I guess, within the question, even though I didn't hear the question. Dan Campbell nowhere said you don't need an elite quarterback to be successful in the NFL. Now, first off, the word elite, saying elite quarterback is completely subjective. All right, it completely is. What is an elite quarterback? Is that top 5? Is that top 10? What is a top 5 quarterback? Is that most pass yards? Is that highest passer rating? Is that your opinion? Because I would definitely bet that if you pulled up all the numbers from quarterbacks and you put them in order from best pass rating to worst, even if I went through that, I would say, yeah, this quarterback's better than this one. I would bet that's the case. It's all scenario that you're in. So there's this interesting clip. Stuff has gotten really popular. The Herd, it was on Fox Sports 1 today. It popped on, recommended, you know how YouTube do, and it just popped up. And I got to listening to it, so I was going to take notes, so I guess that's why it popped up. Listening to it, and it just frustrated me. It irritated the heck out of me. So for anybody that wants to hear me kind of go off on a small little rant, well, enjoy the second part of this video. We're going to react to this little segment from The Herd, and this popped on in the background. I think I was listening to the Pat McAfee show, and it kind of just got under my skin. Just the way, they were talking about Dan Campbell. He doesn't get it. And just the quotes they were using, kind of just taking it out of context. Some of the numbers they were throwing out there didn't even make sense. And this stuff just kind of gets under my skin. I mean, we don't have to do this, but it makes me feel better kind of just putting it out there. It irritates me. So maybe you guys can kind of vibe with that. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. Either way, it'll make me feel better, so I'm going to do it. Let's go. Let's see what he has to say. You can see the title. Colin reacts. Lions head coach. Teams don't need elite quarterback for sustained success. All right. Now, they already messed the quote up right off the beginning, as you'll see. But let's get into it. Let's go.
Campbell doesn't get that.
Okay, he don't get it.
Which is amazing because it's actually tied to his employment. Like if he doesn't get one, he won't be employed in 3 years.
Okay, bam. So right away, he's already saying, and we didn't hear the beginning there. I'm assuming he's saying if Dan Campbell doesn't get an elite quarterback, he's not going to be employed in 3 years. Again, saying elite quarterback means what? Saying elite is that your top 4 quarterbacks? Is that Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Russell Wilson, and that's it? And Tom Brady, and it's like if you don't have that, you're not gonna have a job. Well, that can't be true. We've had John Harbaugh with multiple quarterbacks. I mean, Mike Tomlin. So I don't know what he even means by elite quarterback, anyways. But no, let's just continue. I'm sorry, we're too early to it. Let's get this thing rolling. Here we go.
He said yesterday, I don't think the Lions need an elite quarterback to win.
Okay, bam, right there. First off, he didn't say that, so let's start with that. He didn't, quote, say, I don't believe the Lions need a quarterback to win. Now, he's going to rumble through this. But if you notice, by the quoting, no, I don't think you need that. I think that those guys like that are obviously they're special. Now, what they're taking away from this, they basically cut out the segment where he's talking about mobile quarterbacks. They basically took out the part where Dan Campbell is really mainly talking about mobile quarterbacks, as we saw from the quote, not necessarily elite quarterbacks. He's mainly talking about mobile quarterbacks. He's talking about guys that keep their eyes downfield outside the pocket. They're twisting it and saying like it's an elite quarterback. So this is taken out of context. I just completely. It's like they took out a section of the quote and just continued with the rest of it. Don't know why you would do that, but I guess it's a better headline. Dan Campbell don't need an elite quarterback versus Dan Campbell doesn't think you need a mobile quarterback. Anyway, let's continue. Let him rumble through it.
Jared Goff's pretty good, but he's not elite.
Okay, bam. Let's start there. Jared Goff's pretty good, but he's not elite. I just want you to kind of keep that in your back pocket as we go through this. Just listen to how his tone changes on Jared Goff as he goes through this to kind of match what he's saying. But at the same time, we have some older clips too that make that really interesting. Let's continue,
I don't think you need it.
Okay, here we go.
I mean, those guys are special. Give you a better chance, but no, I don't believe you have to have one of those guys to have sustained success. All right, name all the coaches employed for over 6-7 years that are average at quarterback. None.
All right. So, first off, he just pulled out a random number. I mean, he just completely threw out 6 or 7 years. Have no idea why he pulled that number. He doesn't either. There's only 5 coaches currently in the NFL who have been tenured for over 6 or 7 years. Those 5 coaches are as head coaches, like currently. Not like, I was a head coach and I got lost it and then I'm back to being head coach. Sustained head coach. Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, and Bill Belichick. So it's not like there's a huge amount of coaches that he's pointing out here. He's pointing out 5 coaches. Okay, so I thought I would throw that out there. All right, now he's saying, let's go back.
Coaches employed
5
for
coaches
over
employed
6-7 years that are average at quarterback.
Okay, so we know where Andy Reid has Patrick Mahomes. He hasn't always had Patrick Mahomes. All right, he's been employed for a very long time. Hasn't always had Patrick Mahomes. He's had the Alex Smiths. He's had many different quarterbacks. I don't know if you think Alex Smith is elite, but he's had many different quarterbacks. You have Pete Carroll with Russell Wilson. We'll get into that a little bit later. John Harbaugh right now has Lamar. He also, before that we saw him. Who's the guy? Joe Flacco. Mike Tomlin, who currently has who at quarterback? I don't know. Mason Rudolph. I mean, he had Ben Roethlisberger, who is not himself recently. So, okay. And then you have Bill Belichick, who now has Mac Jones from Brady. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, let's continue.
Mike Zimmer just got fired.
Now, I don't know why he keeps bringing Mike Zimmer up through the segment. I don't. I mean, he does, but okay. They're most successful with Case Keenum, not Kirk Cousins. I guess maybe he was just putting the money in the wrong spot. I guess that's what you're saying, because Kirk Cousins wasn't that elite guy, or maybe I think it was other issues. But either way, let's just continue.
3 real obvious signs.
Let's go.
In
3 obvious
professional
signs.
football.
I'm ready for this.
That quarterback's about 75 to 80% of the game. Number 1.
Okay, 75 to 80%. Write that down. I mean, this is exact. 75 to 80%. This is legit. Let's go.
The best quarterback won every division last year.
Okay, now I actually don't disagree with this. When I look at who won the divisions last year, I would say, yeah, I think the best quarterback did win every division last year. But the point is, it's about how you rank the quarterbacks to say that statement. For example, if you said Carson Wentz is better than Ryan Tannehill, then that statement's false, because you're saying the best quarterbacks won, but you said also that Carson Wentz is better than Ryan Tannehill. So now that makes no sense. But for me looking at it after the season, of course, you can look at it from after the season and say that and be like, well, he was actually good. But to me, I got to look at what you said before the season, right? You got to look at what you said before the season, because one thing we know about quarterback, it's very situational dependent. You're in a bad situation, you will not look the same as being in a good situation. Come back to, but I think it's interesting. This was before the season. I know it's blurry. I don't know why it's so blurry. But notice how he has got Lamar Jackson up here and no Joe Burrow. Now, hey, that's a tough projection because Burrow just kind of seemingly came out of nowhere after coming off an injury. But the Bengals won the division. Okay, also Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson didn't win his division. So that's, real interest. Oh, Russell Wilson missed time. Yeah, he did. We'll get to that. That's true. So did Jared Goff. So just keep that in mind. He probably doesn't know that. But Russell Wilson did have a losing record when he was playing last season. Okay, so anyways, I guess if you want to take that, I don't disagree with what he's saying, but it's not necessarily based on his quarterback rankings before the season started.
That's that's an obvious one.
Oh, it's an obvious one. Okay, it didn't look like that by your rankings. I'm just saying, okay.
Best defensive coach in the history of the sport, and the best coach, Bill Belichick.
I like that. Give Belichick some praise.
Could not force a single punt against Josh Allen in Buffalo's last 14 possessions. Couldn't stop it. And the Bills don't have a great running game.
Now, here... But I don't know why he uses, this is a weird example. I mean, I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's very specific. Like, hey, Bill Belichick didn't stop the Bills. So, because of that, you need an elite quarterback. Okay, I guess because Josh Allen is a really good quarterback. So, Josh Allen is clearly one of his elite quarterbacks, and Mac Jones, is it? Mac Jones is a rookie, though. Can we give him a little time? Either way, it's kind of crazy. I mean, yeah, if you give up 47 points to any team, you're probably in trouble. But you notice how he slipped in there. They didn't have a great running game. The Bills were 6th in yards per carry, 6th in yards per game, and 3rd in expected points added by the run game. As maybe he's specifically talking about without Josh Allen. Maybe that's what it is.
Or a great O-line.
Great O-line. Now, they were, like, I think, middling last year, according to PFF. Yeah, depth was definitely gave him some problems when they had to go to some of their backups, but that's okay. I'll give it to you. It wasn't great. Sure.
Belichick, defense, not once. And number three,
okay.
Of the top 5 rushing teams last year, none won a playoff game.
So these get me because the sample size that we're using is so small. It's really tough. Like, you're just taking 1 year. And by the way, listen to what he says.
Of the top 5 rushing teams.
Top 5 rushing teams last year.
None won a playoff game.
None won a playoff game. Okay, what does that mean? Top 5 rushing teams. Are we talking yards? Because if we're talking yards, as we said, the Bills were 6th in yards per game. So what are we talking here? Rushing game means what? Is it expected points added? Is it yards per carry? Is it only what your running backs are doing? What does that mean? I feel like I need some clarity here. I know they had Devin Singletary who went for 870, 4.6 yards per carry. That's pretty solid. But yeah, Josh Allen was part of their run game. I mean, that's what he brings to the table. So how are we going to go by top 5 rushing teams? And then what, are we going to discount the Bills at that point and say, well, they're not a very good rushing team because a lot of it's Josh Allen? Like, how is that fair? How can we do that? You know, every offense is different in how they do it. They like to run Josh Allen. Teams like the Lions, they're not going to run Jared Goff. Why would I run Jared Goff? Why would the Buccaneers run Tom Brady? They're going to hand the ball off to Leonard Fournette. And they ran the ball well in terms of expected points added by the run. Now, secondly, it's a very small sample size that he's going to use here. He's just using 2021. We'll continue for a second.
3 of the 4 top rushing teams didn't make the playoffs. This is why.
Now, I think one of those teams were actually the Colts, who, yeah, it was the Colts, but we know the Colts lost in the last week. So, but anyways, here's what I don't like about how small that sample size is. Let's just flip it. Let's just go back one more year. Let's take a look at 2020. All right. Now, has the NFL changed that much in one season? I don't think so. These guys, Josh Allen, Mahomes, are still here. In 2020, if you just look at rushing yards, because it sounds like that's basically what he's just going off here, I saw 3 teams make the playoffs. That were top 5 in rushing. And a couple of those teams won playoff games. The Titans, the Ravens, and the Browns were all in the playoffs. Browns won the playoff game. Titans won a playoff game. Okay, all those teams. In comparison, still 2020, 3 teams made the playoffs that were top 5 in passing yards. Again, I'm just going based off of yards here. 2 teams did not. The 2 teams that did not include the Falcons and the Texans. Both those teams won 4 games. On the rushing side, the 2 teams that did not make it were the Eagles and the Vikings, who went 7 and 9. Even if we're just using 2021 rushing stats, just total rushing yards, I'm assuming that's what he's going by here, I just think this argument's still kind of whack because the team that was first was Philly, which made the playoffs this season, which was really incredible. Yeah, Jalen Hurts is a big part of that, but they made the playoffs first in rushing. Indianapolis Colts didn't make the playoff, missed on the last week of the season. Baltimore Ravens, sure, they didn't make it, but Lamar Jackson missed time. If Lamar was healthy, they probably would have made the playoffs, right? They may have won that division. The Browns, it's kind of the same thing there. Baker was hurt all year. He had a much worse season, but we can just say that they didn't make it. Tennessee Titans, they made the playoffs. They won their division. And then behind them, if you get outside the top 5, you just expand a little bit. How about the Bills, right? 6. San Francisco made the playoffs. Patriots made the playoffs. Cowboys made the playoffs. Cardinals made the playoffs. To be clear here, while the 49ers aren't in the top 5, they're a run-first team. The San Francisco 49ers are a run-first team. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not an elite quarterback. Okay, I don't know how you do your elite quarterbacks, but however you do it, he's not in that category. Team won some playoff games. They about beat the Rams in the NFC Championship game, about to send them to the Super Bowl. The second time Jimmy Garoppolo would have been in the Super Bowl. He was maybe the worst quarterback in the playoffs. The point is like, you can win many different ways. There's a reason that they traded up to go get Trey Lance. There's a reason that they made the move that they did. They understood where it was, but you can still win with Jimmy Garoppolo. Doesn't have to be the best quarterback. You can still win with a guy. Kyle Shanahan didn't get fired because, oh, you guys got Jimmy Garoppolo. He just found a way to win because he built his team. I just think it's a kind of a whack argument overall. Let it be somewhat effective in both. If you can only pass and not run, or you only can run and not pass, it's going to be really hard to be successful, consistent success throughout the season. Now, the Bengals, we saw them. They didn't run the ball extremely well statistically, yet they went to the Super Bowl. They only won 10 games, but again, if Lamar is not hurt, that way. You look at the Titans, yeah, they may not have the most passing yards, and maybe they do because of all the play action work, but they're built much differently than the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, like they need the run game. They have to build through that because that's how they play the game. So it's based on what you have. It's also based on kind of your mindset as a team. If you go by expected points added per play, according to Pro Football Reference, and you use rushing and passing, last season, this 2021 season, 9 of the playoffs teams were in above average, were in the top half of the NFL, expected points added per run, and 11 of those teams per pass. So, again, the sample size here is just way too slim. To me, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but let's continue.
Mike Zimmer was fired, and Vic Fangio was fired.
I mean, okay, Vikings have had a good run game, and that's a staple of their offense. It's to play action off the run game. That's what they do. And then also he's bringing up Vic Fangio as well. So I guess I get that part. But again, we did see Case Keenum win a playoff game, so that's not an elite quarterback. Now maybe that's too old now. Maybe that's that's not a thing anymore. That's what he thinks. I don't know. Let's continue.
And why Pete Carroll's about to be
fired. Pete Carroll's about to be fired. Well, why is Pete Carroll about to be fired? Because now he doesn't have Russell, I'm assuming he's saying. He does realize that Russell Wilson had a losing record last season, right? I mean, he was 6-8. So I'm just pointing out he was 6-8. Okay, continue.
If you don't get how valuable quarterback is, you don't get it. It would be like being a sports radio host in America and saying, yeah, football's popular, but I don't have to talk the NFL much. No. Over 50%. I didn't used to talk 50%. And
so it's interesting.
I feel bad for Lions fans.
He feels bad for us. Okay, here we go. Let's see why.
Detroit actually has a pretty good offensive line.
Okay, see, now he's going to go into it. See, I like this. He has a pretty good offensive line. Okay, I agree with you there. Let's keep going.
They've got some interesting players.
Let's hear it.
Tight end.
Great young tight end. Okay, I think we have a really good young tight end. I mean, obviously he missed some time last year and he had some penalty issues, but good tight end, right? Is he worth a huge extension? We'll see, but he's
got some interesting players. They have a great young tight end.
Yeah.
Excellent young wide receiver.
Excellent young wide receiver. We know he's talking about St. Brown there. St. Brown was outstanding in the second half of the season.
DeAndre Swift is a remarkable young running back.
Nice. He's a nice young running back.
Offensive line is good.
Offensive line is good.
They don't score that much.
They don't score that much. Okay.
Quarterback's pretty average.
Oh wait, hold up. Now at the beginning, you remember he said he's a pretty good quarterback, and now he's pretty average. Okay, let's continue.
That's it.
That's
running
it.
Backs top 5. They're
Whoa, hold up. Now we gotta talk about this. You're saying Swift is a top 5 running back in the league. That's what he just said. Swift is. Why isn't that not the headline? You just said Swift's a top 5 running back. Now I gotta be honest with you, Colin. I mean, I hope he is, but even as a Lions fan, he only played in 13 games last year. The guy averaged 4.1 yards a carry. He had 640 yards rushing. Swift top 5 running back. I can't go. I don't know why you think DeAndre. I guess it supports their case more, but there's no way. DeAndre Swift wasn't even our number 1 running back last year. I mean, if we're just being real, the guy played 13 games, started 4 of them. Jamal was our number 1 running back, but he's saying he's a top 5 running back. Okay, all right. I mean, hey, if he just got to be a little more healthy, but if he's a top 5, and he had a couple great games. He had a nice game against Pittsburgh. He had a really nice game against Cleveland, and then after that, he had 13 carries in the last 3 games of the season. So, okay. Anyway, continue.
The quarterback's pretty average.
All right.
That's it. Their running backs top 5. Their tight end. Because the quarterback's pretty average. That's it. Their running backs top 5. Their tight end, I think, is top 5 or 6.
I'm not against saying top 5 or 6 for Hawk. Okay, that's fine.
I mean, they've got a couple of really nice. Amon St. Brown was a great rookie receiver.
Yeah, St. Brown was really nice. Second half of the season, he blew up, though, because he wasn't that productive in the first half of the season. Now, this is what they don't talk about. We understand, though, the changes that happened at the first half. Biggest one being, obviously, the addition of Taylor Decker, the addition of Josh Reynolds, but also the coaching change. Ben Johnson being creative, playing him outside, giving some help there, getting him much more involved. Passing game took a huge step in the second half. So, yes, St. Brown did have a good rookie season. He really did. Second half, he went nuts. But it was not like that in the first half of the season like it was in the second half.
I mean, they've got a couple of really nice. Amon St. Brown was a great rookie receiver. Mm-hmm. Their offensive line, Penei Sewell, they got 2 good tackles.
Look at that. Wow, hey, we got 2 good tackles. What are you talking about? We do have 2 good tackles. Taylor Decker didn't even play half the season. The guy missed the entire first half of the season and still missed some games in the second half of the season. So we do have 2 good tackles, but they didn't play all year. You're acting like, okay, well, we had this and that. Like, the difference of a team as a whole, you just said we didn't score because we didn't have a quarterback. On the season, the Lions averaged under 20 points per game. Not very good. Not very good. I think it would be just as simple as this. The question that I would ask to him is Matthew Stafford an elite quarterback? Do you think Matthew Stafford is one of these elite quarterbacks that apparently you need to have? And I think we may have already have our answer on that question, as he had Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay ranked as the number 2 quarterback coach duo in the National Football League. He had Matthew Stafford ranked as his number 7 quarterback coming into the season. That was before he even saw a snap, which we'll see is pretty messed up. To look at, where he was ranked in the past before he joined the LA Rams. Situation is extremely important. The Lions this past season, second half of the season with Jared Goff, the 6 games he played in, they were 3-2-1. They scored 22.6 points per game, which would have put him in the middle of the pack for the season. But this has been something for years. This isn't just a quarterback thing. Lions haven't consistently been a high-scoring team in the National Football League. I mean, you look at 2020. They scored 23.6 points per game as a team. 2019, 21.3 points per game. Now, before Stafford got injured, it was about 25 points per game. 2018, 20.3 points per game. 2017 was 25.6. 2016, it was 21.6 points per game. Situation matters, all right? Stafford is averaging more points than I think he's ever averaged with the LA Rams. I mean, just look at the situation that a guy like Josh Allen came into. He came into the league joining a team that was 9-7 the year before. Look at Patrick Mahomes. He comes into the league. He's a backup quarterback to a team that's winning divisions. Jared Goff is coming into a situation, not as bad as when Stafford came in, which was an 0-16 team. Jared Goff is coming into a situation where the head coach was just fired and you won 5 football games. It was just all about having a quarterback to have sustained success, and none of our coaches would have been fired over these years. We've had tons of guys fired with Matthew Stafford. Not only did he come into a team that just won 5 games, that has a new regime, he's also coming to a team that lost its top receivers in free agency. Marvin's gone, Jamal's gone, Kenny Golladay, all the top receivers Stafford had, gone. The top receiver they bring in plays 1 game, 2 receptions. The other top receiver they bring in doesn't play. He got cut. All right. So it wasn't like he was like, oh, we got all these weapons. You gave him 1 weapon in Josh Reynolds, and you got 1 tackle back. And this offensive line that was supposed to be a strength, which was almost fully healthy, you still didn't have Frank Ragnow. All of a sudden, you're scoring points. And I think that's what Dan Campbell is saying here. Yeah, Goff is the best for this team right now. He is, because think about it. I mean, if you have Goff, right? Let's just say you keep building around Goff. You get this team. You build a team around Goff with a consistent run game, with better weapons. And it's not like you're super far off, it seems like, offensively. Fix the depths a little bit with the offensive line, which is extremely close. Just needs a backup tackle. Really improve this defense. If Goff's successful, great. If not, or not even to the level that you want it to be, now when you plug a quarterback in, look how much money you're going to have to spend. The first half of the season, they weren't scoring. They had the game against San Fran, which was the comeback. After that, they didn't see 20 points again until the second half of the season, when, guess what, Taylor Decker was back. We made an offensive coordinator change.
Rookie receiver. Their offensive line, Panay.
I mean, it is a good line. He's not wrong. It's good when it's healthy. It was good when it's healthy. But this is why we keep saying we need a backup tackle, because it wasn't good for half the season. I could sit here and throw up the pressure rates if you want to see them, Colin, but this is, come on, man.
Tackles?
At least talk about guys that were healthy. Like, what are we doing? You're not even going to mention the fact that he missed over half the year? Okay, anyway, continue.
They got a lot of good offensive pieces.
A lot of good offensive pieces. This is the worst receiver group in the National Football League, is what everybody told me coming in. Everybody told me that. Okay, they got a lot of good offensive pieces. Now, St. Brown's nice. We got some nice running backs. But the guys got to stay healthy. Like, they have to be healthy.
They're just not great at quarterback.
Not great at quarterback. Okay.
There you go.
Now we're not great at quarterback.
And that's not a shot at Jared Goff. But, I mean, you saw the Rams. The minute he left, Stafford comes in. It's a whole different ballgame.
Loves this example. Anyways, let's go back. See, here's what's interesting to this. You kind of saw how what he was saying about Goff has changed. Now, he was taking a shot at Goff. But he went from saying he's a pretty good quarterback to slowly working to he's not a good quarterback. And it's like, hey, you saw what happened. He got traded, and all of a sudden they go out there and they win a Super Bowl. Now, hey, he still was in a Super Bowl. That's pretty good. But they didn't win a Super Bowl. But you know what's interesting about this is you're saying this after the season. I mean, it's easy to come after the season and be like, Stafford was better. Stafford was good last season. Now everybody's on the Stafford train. Everybody's on the train. Don't you think for a second that maybe it had to do something of the situation? Because you guys were not all on the train before he went to LA. You weren't even saying that Stafford was better than Goff before the change happened. 2020 quarterback tiers, okay? So coming off the 2019 season into 2020. So again, before the season. I don't care if you rank him after a year. Year's done, all right? After the season, let's see what he says.
They're Hall of Famers. You're lucky to Seattle, Green
lucky to
Bay,
have these
Kansas
guys.
City, and Tampa.
Top 4. Those are his top 4. Okay.
That is a once-in-a-lifetime
That's tier 1.
talent. You'll franchise talent. Given group of guys, they're the future. Now, the future may not be 10 years. It may be 4. Now, the future may not be...
They're the future, all right? Now, notice, it's hard to see it. Notice who's on tier 2 and notice who's not on tier 2. Where Jared Goff is, okay? Now, this is his rankings, not mine. This is what he's saying. Heading into a year where Jared Goff was still with the Rams, this was the perspective. This is what people thought about Jared Goff. Okay? Man, take a look at how this changes the perspective on Stafford when he goes to LA. Now, notice, Stafford's not on here.
Not be 10 years, it may be 4. But it's Burrow, Derek Carr, who I like more than the rest of you, Goff, who I like more than the rest of you. And then the third tier is you got to make phone calls. I put some of the people that
Look where he's got Stafford. I really hope that he didn't go from left to right. Oh my goodness, man. You got Jimmy Garoppolo up here. Stop. Cam Newton. Okay, I'm sorry. Keep it going.
are the best.
I'm sorry. Let's go.
You got to make phone calls. I put some of the people
Wait,
that are the
what did he
best.
say?
Everybody.
All right, now let's hear what he says.
And then the third tier is you got to make phone calls.
Got to make
I put
phone
some
calls.
of the people that are the best. So I didn't put just everybody here. Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan.
You got to make phone calls if you got these guys. You might have to go look for another quarterback. Oh wait, actually the opposite happened. They actually made a phone call to get Stafford. That's okay. I mean, he was right about the phone call. It was just
Josh Allen,
backwards.
Garoppolo, Cam, Dak. That I think you're making calls. I think you have to consider drafting somebody. Here's my point. The quality of quarterback is so good. The bar has been raised so much.
Let's hear this. I want to hear the bar. Let's go.
And Justin Herbert. I mean, it's just like getting raised. And it's going to get raised more next year with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. It's going to get raised again. That the bottom of tier 2 in many eyes is Jared Goff, who many of you would not put in.
Now notice, he had Goff a tier above Stafford. Let's see what he says about Goff.
Just think about this. Here's how
I'm
good
listening.
the quarterback plays.
I'm listening.
Here's how much the bar has been raised. Jared Goff in the NFL is averaging, if you look at his numbers, he's a 65% completion guy, a mid-90s passer rating guy, and you get 2 touchdowns for every pick.
You know what's weird? That hasn't changed. Actually, last season, but people want to get on from last year. If you're just going on based on Collins saying, last season he was a 67% completion guy. He had a better than 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, and he was a 90s passer rating guy. That's okay. I mean, second half of the season, if he knew what he did in the last 6 games, winning record 3-2-1 at a 100+ pass rating, but he doesn't know that. He doesn't know. Bottom of tier 2.
By the way, I think he's Matt Ryan with a better arm and more athletic.
Now, this is what was being said about Goff on stations like this. This is the guy that said, hey, if you don't get that in 3 years, you're out. He's Matt Ryan with a better arm and more athletic. It's the way that things have changed. A year later, Stafford's going to LA. Haven't seen a dang game yet. Haven't seen a game. Where's Goff at? Oh, he's not there anymore. Okay, where's Stafford? Oh, 7. You have Stafford above Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, who's coming off a great rookie season, Kyler Murray, Matt Ryan, who apparently Goff is Matt Ryan, has better athleticism, better arm, and Derek Carr. Okay, what? This is the stuff that drives me crazy. Because you're going to say these things, and then this? We understand situations important. And it tells me that he understands situations important. But the point is, you have to take situation into account. It's like you're throwing situation completely out the window. Like, it's almost like he's trying to argue, well, hey, running game don't matter. You just need a great quarterback. Nope. Nope. That's not how it works. The reason that Russell Wilson, who you always have ranked highly, had a losing record last season. It could have been a coaching thing. That's always a part of it. It was a big deal that Ben Johnson started being more involved in our passing game. How about when Rodgers won 6 games in a season? Probably had a lot to do with the fact that maybe Mike McCarthy was the coach, because they had a good run game. They had a solid defense, yet they won 6 games. He said, well, Lions had a good run game. Based on what? Based on what did the Lions have a good run game? What are we basing that on? You're talking about DeAndre Swift as the top 5 running back. Guy that had 600 yards rushing, 4.1 yards per carry, was not our starting running back, played in 13 games. He had 13 carries over his last 3 games that he played in. You're telling me he's a top 5 running back because you're just trying to diminish as much as you possibly can everything else that is involved. You're trying to just make it about the quarterback, and it's not like that. Lions last season were still 26th in the National Football League in expected points added per rush. That's not very good. That's not very good. He would never know. Godwin led the team in yards per carry from the running back position. We had one of the worst defenses in the National Football League. We had one of the worst pressure rates. We had one of the worst run stop rates. One of the worst third down defensive rates. Teams just ran it on us. We've looked at the advanced stats. But we don't want to make any note of that because that stuff is too specific. That's too detailed, man.
You saw the Chiefs and Packers play last year when Aaron didn't play and Jordan Love did.
Here's what's funny about this game. He's going to talk about, Jordan Love, their offense, he only scored 7 points. Well, why did Patrick Mahomes only score 13? I mean, if Love couldn't score and they had to change their offense, why did Mahomes only score 13? Why was his completion percentage just over 50%? Why did he only have 1 touchdown pass? Could it have been to do with maybe the fact that they only averaged 3 yards a carry and had 70 yards rushing in that game? And the fact that, I don't know, on the season, they're one of the better rushing teams in the National Football League. They average 4.5 yards per carry. Maybe that has something to do with it. That game, the Packers stopped their run game, and all of a sudden, the Chiefs didn't score. But you won't talk about that. You're just going to talk about Jordan Love.
Packer team, one player was different.
Okay, did we look like the same Lions team in the second half of the season? I mean, now, with Goff, we averaged just under 23 points per game, which would have put us right in the middle of the pack. Keep that in mind. All right, we know statistically he's one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League to finish the season with, look, everything that he's saying, oh, well, they have a great offensive line. Why are they not doing well? Well, maybe because the offensive line wasn't healthy for the first half of the season. Maybe because that great tackle, your most important tackle, your blindside tackle, wasn't there for the first half of the season. Well, they have a top 5 running back. Okay, what top 5 running back has 600 yards rushing on 4 yards per carry and plays and starts in 4 games? That's not a top 5 running back in the league. I like Swift, but it's not. They have this great receiver. Okay, what did Amon-Ra St. Brown do in the first half of the season? Tell me that. He was good, but he wasn't what he was. This is the worst receiving group in the National Football League. You got Josh Reynolds. You didn't say a dang thing about Josh Reynolds, but if you knew that, you would know that impact that Josh Reynolds had. Oh yeah, and by the way, Frank Ragnow wasn't there all season. I completely forgot. Frank Ragnow didn't play. Oh no, he was there for the first couple of games. Frank Ragnow missed the majority, most of the season. They got a good old line. Oh, look at that depth chart. Yeah, but they didn't play. I mean, they got a good, TJ Hawkinson. Look at TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson's last game was Minnesota. TJ Hawkinson, yeah, I mean, he's a stud. I mean, you want to become more efficient in some areas, but he can be an absolute stud. It got to the point where last season, where once we lost Quintez Cephas in the Minnesota Vikings game, for the next 3 weeks heading into the bye week, I mean, the Lions' offense was just terrible. We literally just force-fed TJ Hawkinson. It was like, oh, 3rd and 10, let's run a screen to TJ Hawkinson. Like, we force-fed this guy. He was the red zone target. TJ Hawkinson's a great player, but you can't be a great player with no one else taking the pressure off of you. And that doesn't necessarily blame the players. It can also be a blame to the coaching staff, not finding a way to get Amon-Ra St. Brown involved like he was in the second half of the season. The offensive line did not help because the protection wasn't holding up. It was 2 times more pressure in the first half of the season than the second half of the season. We scored 30 points without him against Arizona. We scored 37 points without him against Green Bay. Didn't have him against Denver. Would have loved to have him. We may not score 30 points per game. But dang, if we can get in the top half, which is basically what we were averaging in the second half of the season, with the style that we run with, I mean, why can't you find the stat that, hey, Lions had an 8.5-minute drive to start the Arizona game that led to a field goal. It wasn't even a touchdown. I mean, can we look at that number? That's the Lions style offensively. It's a different style, but at the same time, can it be effective? Yes, it can.
The whole playbook changed.
That's the case with every team. Like, is that not, I mean, come on, man. Why didn't we talk about this with Stafford? Why didn't we, hey, look, when Stafford was down against Tampa, did you see they couldn't even score? They only had 7 points on 1 punt return touchdown, but they lost 47-7. Why didn't no one talk about that? Why didn't no one say, hey, look at the Lions in 2019. Stafford went down, they lost every game in the second half of the season. Everything changed. I feel like just based on the quotes that we heard, Dan Campbell's going to make me extremely happy as a Lions fan because Dan Campbell understands, hey, we got a lot of problems here. We got a lot of problems. And chasing quarterback probably isn't the right way to do that, especially if you don't think that guy is here, right? I mean, if you don't think that guy is here at 2, why would I just draft a quarterback? That doesn't make any sense. You know, I mean, your quarterback is your biggest investment. I mean, it's expensive. You're getting a 5th-year option. They're the most expensive contract when it comes to re-signings. Plus, it's a 2 pick in the draft. I mean, you should be getting the most impactful player on your team, no matter what position you go at here. I mean, this is a huge pick. At worst, you might be able to trade back and grab like 8 draft picks in return. Seriously, the value is insane. Makes me so excited because it sounds like Dan Campbell says it, and he's just like, look, we got a lot of problems. We got a lot of things that we need to improve upon. Chasing quarterback is not going to fix those problems. Let's just get better as a team. Let's build this roster out, whether that's a trade back and acquiring a lot more picks or just taking a stud playmaker on defense that we need to have because we need another playmaker on defense. Just some blue chip, hey, this guy's a difference maker for that team. When you play the Lions, you're like, hey, guess what? They got this guy on the D-line or they got this guy. I don't even care who it is. You know what I'm saying? That makes me excited. And we'll build that team because it was something the Lions were unable to do for years. But always, as always, it comes back to Sheila. Seeing that vision, seeing that plan. This plan to me was always the plan that was laid out. To me, this was always the plan that was laid out. If I'm reading it correctly, which Dan Campbell was basically saying, hey, We're going to build this roster, and we'll see how Jared Goff does in it. And if he doesn't perform to where we want him to, then we'll go get our guy in the next draft or the year after that, whenever that comes available. Or if Goff does play well, great. We just keep building the team. That was the plan to me that was always in place. The resignings of the backup quarterbacks, Jared Goff's current contract. This isn't some spur-of-the-moment decision that Dan Campbell just came up with, like, hey, maybe we should do this. This was, I think, the plan when they got Jared Goff. They looked at it and said, okay, we have this plan that they can continue to say we had this plan built. We have this plan that we're following. This is part of the plan to me, and it's been a part of the plan. And now it's about following that part of the plan. And maybe as soon as that quarterback pops up that you feel like is that guy that you love, you take him. But since, to me, that's not here in this class, you hold off, you see how Goff does with more weapons, but you understand the focus is build the team. Feel better now. I do. I feel better. I feel like I got it out, and I think we can end it there.
You're done. So show yourself to the door. It'll be in a couple years, but if that's how you're viewing things, it's not that difficult. Football's hard. It's not.
Yeah, so I guess if you don't have a mobile quarterback, you're done. You're done. Show yourself to the door, Dan. You don't have a mobile quarterback. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Better draft the mobile quarterback this year. You better do it. You better do it, Dan.